Welcome to the Mind and Body Performance Podcast. I'm Jake Murphy, and today I'm joined by Jason Galko, real estate agent and former talk show host, and someone committed to personal growth. We're diving into self-improvement, outside influences, and why prioritizing training is essential for long-term health and longevity. Welcome, Jason Galko. For those of you guys who don't know who Jason is a realtor, right? So he sells real estate, and he also used to own a talk show host, the Jason Galko Show. Jason and I have been working together for almost a year now. He's one of my clients, working fitness, working health. He's on a self-improvement journey. So I figured I'd sit down here with you, Jason, and kind of ask you a couple questions about your journey and maybe some lessons that you've learned. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
All right, so I guess we'll start off. What was training like for you when you were growing up? Have you always been into fitness, or is this something that you kind of picked up later on in your lifetime?
I was never into it, honestly. I was always the awkward kid growing up, and I wasn't into sports. I wasn't into weightlifting, working out. I don't know. It just wasn't a thing for me until I got much older, in my 20s, when I first started training, and I was a group fitness instructor myself. And when I did the training, I took the test. I was teaching in New York sports clubs and little hometown gyms as well for a number of years. So that was the extent of my training. And now I feel like as I'm approaching my 40s, well, I'm in my 40s, but as I approach my mid-40s now, life starts to change and the body changes and priorities change. So that's why I'm here.
So that's why you're here.
Yeah.
So how long was it? Did you find yourself sustaining the physical activity throughout, like from your 20s on, or was there a brief period where like...
There was more like a long period.
There was a long period.
Yeah. I mean, back when I was doing my talk show, it was a much different platform than this. I mean, now podcasts are really taking over. I'm from the time of television and holding the microphone, and the audience was a part of the show. It was a very, very cool time for me. And we relied on ratings versus, streaming and online audience. It didn't really exist. Facebook and Instagram were really just coming into play at that time, and it was really just posting photos.
That's not a lot of like social media and stuff like that.
No, so you can see how like Instagram and Facebook have evolved now, where you can upload videos and you can share links. I mean, back then we could share stills or pictures, and then finally videos were able to be uploaded. So it's kind of cool to see how it's evolved. I mean, you certainly, doing this and starting this at a young age, you have a lot more options.
Absolutely.
I'm from the time, like, if you were on television, like, you relied on ratings, you relied on people watching at home, and now you have all these platforms available to you.
Which I think is great, because we could kind of share and express knowledge and expertise, and that's really why I wanted you to have you here, is because of your experience. First your experience, obviously, talking in front of group, and then also just like your life experience and kind of how your life has turned and evolved throughout your lifetime. How would you say, what were like some of the feelings that you felt, or what was the reasons why? You said that you had like a gap between your 20s and you are 42 now.
Yes.
You said there was a little gap where you weren't training. What was it because of building your career and living your lifestyle that kind of took you away from focusing on your fitness?
Yes. I'm fortunate I was never overweight or heavy or anything, but I was out of shape. And you can still be slim and, 100-something pounds and still be out of shape. I was waking up.
I think that's actually something you don't realize.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I could wake up some mornings as stiff as a board, like muscle-wise and bone-wise, like just uncomfortable not having the flexibility or the mobility. And that's just from lack of exercise. But it was a time when I was, taping my show, and it was long days. I mean, we were there sometimes from 7 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night.
And you had a long commute, correct?
My show, the last couple of seasons of my show filmed in Manhattan. Okay. So I was, on the train at, 4:30 something, 5 a.m., being there by 7, and it was an all-day thing. Some days we tape one show, some days we tape 2 shows. If we were doing something like a makeover, well, that obviously took longer because we would have to stop tape and, the makeovers would have to take place, hair, makeup, and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
But it was really a very cool time, but it didn't allow me a lot of time to work on my physical fitness. I was always on the go.
During it.
And even the weekends, it was like, we were going to some really cool parties in the Hamptons during the summer, so there was really no time for the gym.
Yeah, it was just more so experience.
Yeah.
And now, what was like the determining factor that, or like the aha moment that you had where you were like, okay, I need to start to get dive back into the gym. I think you make a great point when you're talking about how you're obviously building your career, and you had multiple different jobs that you were doing within one. So you were constantly out of the house, constantly moving, constantly growing yourself, growing your business, growing your income. And that does, the sacrifice of that is you sacrifice time. You sacrifice time away from other things. What was like that aha moment that you had where you were like, okay, I need to start putting my health and my fitness first over maybe some of these other experiences of like going out and partying and doing different things on top of what you were doing?
I can't pinpoint exactly where my rock bottom, I wouldn't say rock bottom, but where my line drew per se. I just think that I woke up one day and was like, I have to just do this. Like I was tired of being exhausted for no reason all the time. I wasn't eating. I was tired. I wasn't really eating properly. I was, drinking more than I should have. And it's very simple, especially in the summertime. I don't work a lot in the summer, which I'm very fortunate. But that leads to, dining out more or hanging out on the beach or the boat. And it's very easy to keep pouring a drink, and then suddenly you realize, I had a little more than I should, and it's become a thing. So since cutting all of that out, I really have been like alcohol free for like the past month, and I already feel it.
And you had said that. I think that that's something extremely important that I want to bring up as far as your self-improvement journey is, for the last year you've been mentioning a lot with it. I think what I like about our sessions mostly is that we connect through speaking and conversation. Like it's not just exercise. And I think that that's important. Would you say that that's like important?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when you're working trainer-client relationships. Because I do think that there is, obviously we're focusing on your fitness, but there is a lot of mental things that come alongside with it. And I do believe that when you're exercising, it does bring on emotion. It does start to bring out some things. Within the last month, you have stopped alcohol. How has that made you feel? Like deep down,
100 times better.
100 times better. Yeah. You feel more energized, focused.
I sleep better. My days, where it used to be like a chore to get out of bed after like a night of heavy drinking, it was like, forcing myself. Yes, I could function, but I was forcing myself to get up, start my day, do what I have to do, and just cross things off the list. The gym was one of them. Like I have to get to the gym and get that done. Now it's like I wake up, I'm clear-headed, I feel great, I'm not exhausted after a night's sleep. And I'm able to start my day with a little pep in my step, which I didn't have for a very long time. And I look back now and I realize what I was really doing to myself, and my skin improved, my overall the look of my body. I'm not bloated anymore. I don't feel bloated. I don't feel foggy anymore. Like I feel a lot better. And it's only 1 month that I've been doing it, so some people really have to hit rock bottom before they reach this point. I'm very fortunate and very grateful that I didn't have it as bad as some people might have it.
And I'm sure it's going to be one of those things that you're constantly going to have to be working through. I think that, especially when you're on a fitness journey, I tell people all the time, I think the obsessiveness, like obsessive personality or addictive personality is actually very much needed when you're trying to transform your life. It's just really taking that one addiction that you had and putting it towards a different one. And the addiction now becomes exercise. I've been trying, and I know we talked about this too, is making sure that fitness is somewhat fun. Would you say that you actually enjoy working out? Like is it something that's like becoming something that's really enjoyable that
I do.
That allows you to want to stay consistent?
Absolutely. And I think a big part of it now is like seeing the results. We've been working together almost a year now, like you said in the beginning, and I'm finally seeing not finally, I've been seeing it, but I'm seeing it more now that I've also changed my habits outside of here. I'm not eating, junk food as much as I was. I'm a huge sweet tooth kind of person, so I could start with dessert. I'm not really doing that anymore. I got rid of the alcohol. So now it's like the workouts are more enjoyable because I can do them physically and mentally, as opposed to before. There was a little bit of struggle there because of my own habits outside of here.
Absolutely. I love what you say when you're talking physically and mentally. Would you say over the last year, have you seen the biggest difference physically, or has it been mentally? Like, what would you say?
It's been physically, I think.
Physically. Yeah. Physically. Now, what kind of, I know you said a little bit earlier you felt a little tight, maybe stiff, fatigue, lack of energy. Since exercising consistently, have you seen that has that been a big change?
Yes.
Like, have you felt more energized, able to move and not feel as stiff throughout the day? Has
Absolutely.
that been something?
Yes.
Okay. And definitely because I feel Jason and I, we work a lot of functional movement. And I know that some of the movements are a little challenging.
Yeah.
You know, like we actually just had a session prior to this conversation, and that one exercise on the cable is not easy. The first time you saw that, I'm sure it was a little challenging. But I do think as far as functional movement patterns, it's a really good movement. And I also think that it's a little more fun than, say, just doing a bicep curl of some sort.
Yeah, you definitely make it interesting. I think the age gap between us is like we learn from each other.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm learning how to get physically fit again and get back into the gym thanks to you. And, you know, through our conversations, I hope I teach you some things.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a hidden gem to this job, is that, like, I do seek mentorship from older people that I get the opportunity to work with, and I think it's great because, number one, yes, we are both learning from each other. And even when I'm teaching within the school and I work with students that are younger than me, there's still things that I learn from them that and you wouldn't think. And I feel like the reason that we're here is to really learn. It's to evolve. It's to grow. And I think that when you put yourself in growth environments, you know, like when you're working with a personal trainer and you're in the gym, that's a growth environment. If you're in the school, that's a growth environment. When you're just having conversations, no matter where you are, I'm sure. And the reason why I like speaking to you too is that I feel like you're very social, and you probably learn from all sorts of conversations that you have with people throughout the day. How would you say, what is like your when you're learning something, do you learn most through conversation, would you say?
I do. I'm very hands-on.
Hands-on.
Very hands-on. I went to college, I went to school and everything, and I did all of that stuff. But I was really just always a hands-on person. Like, I had to see it. Show it to me once and I'm good. Sometimes, it's easy for me to forget some of our little workouts and stuff. But, we train in the morning, so I'm not totally awake yet. But, no, I've just always been very hands-on.
It's actually something I want to dive into also, is that you're talking about, we do train early, we train in the morning, and it is one of the first things that you do when you wake up. And you, before training with me, you had said that you had a hard time waking up in the morning to train. It was more so you were an afternoon guy. Have you evolved? Do you actually like training in the morning?
I do.
Is it something that's like helps you get up in the morning? I
think a lot of it, again, not to sound like a broken record, but I think just changing my dietary habits too has a big part to do with that, because I'm not eating, sugar late at night and then, going to that food coma, or I'm not, drinking and, that's throwing off my sleep, or I'm sleeping in the morning to, get rid of a hangover or a headache or something. So just changing all of my habits have just kind of made me a different person.
Helped you overall.
Yeah.
And definitely, is it part of your workday? Like, is it part of your workday to get up and to train? I definitely see, especially being here in the morning, I think a lot of people that show up here first thing, it's like it's part of their daily work routine.
It sets the tone for the rest of the day, 100%.
If you could go back, would you make exercise part of your daily routine even while growing your career? And if so, like, would it be realistic for you, or was the work so hard? I know that there's so many people out here that want to train.
Yeah.
They want to train, they want to get on their fitness journey, but they're so tired. And they're like you said, they feel tired, they feel stiff, they feel that lack of motivation. What would you say to somebody that was in that position?
Just show up. Show up, try it. You have nothing to lose. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But I feel like, just getting back to the original question of, what would I change back then? Yeah, I wish I did throw exercise back into my routine in my, mid-20s and early 30s. And we all can make time for it if we want to. That's what it comes down to. You have to want to do it.
You have to want to do it.
Yes.
I agree with that. I think that's one thing that is, like, it has to be a priority.
Yeah.
It has to be a priority. And that's what, like, I also love about what I do too, is that most people that I'm working with really want to show up. They want to do it. And that's why, like, it brings this sense of light in me to work with people like yourself, because you're showing up consistently. And consistently, after you had said that you used to have a hard time getting up in the morning, showing up. So when I see that and I see how consistent you're being, that helps me, that inspires me to want to provide you a better service and work harder for you. And also work hard for myself within my own training.
What is your favorite exercise that we do, Jason? What is I know that there's a lot of exercise, and I do try to challenge you sometimes, and I know I make jokes sometimes about some different exercises and movements that we do, but what would you say is like the most fun thing that you do within our session as far as like our exercise and programming?
Well, I know that we joke about the bear claw thing, which that is very cool. The bear claw planks, that is cool. That is on my list. My all-time favorite, I don't know. I think anything that we do with the bands.
Bands and cables.
I do like the bands and the cables because, I feel like I just get more range of motion.
100%.
With that.
And constant tension.
Yes.
That's actually really what I love about the bands and the cables.
Well, now that I'm like a year into it, like now, in the beginning, it's like you're still trying to get, for me anyway, you're trying to get the pattern down and then, get comfortable doing it. Now I'm at the point where like I'm comfortable doing it, like it feels right now as opposed to when I first started.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what the evolution and the growing. If you could go back and give yourself advice, or I'm 25. If you could give a 25-year-old advice and go back and what would you say to yourself at that time? Like, what is like something that you would say, or what has been your greatest lesson that you've learned throughout your lifetime? Like, what is that?
Always have an open mind.
Open mind.
Keep an open mind on everything. I mean, the world is evolving. It's changing. Some of it's good. Some of it's not so good. I just, look back to, we were talking about this the other day, actually, there's like a meme on social media that's growing up in the 80s and 90s, like there were no video phones, there was no cloud, there was no iPhones, nothing. So like any stupid things you did, there's no recollection of it anywhere as opposed to today. Not that I did such crazy things, but just looking back, it was a cool time to grow up and just seeing what's evolving into now. It's definitely, somebody like me, I have to keep an open mind because it's a very different time than the 80s and 90s. Things that we grew up with, Nintendo and Atari, and now it's like all these different games, and you were mentioning a game today and stuff. Like I have no idea.
Yeah.
About that stuff.
It is changing.
Yeah.
It is changing.
So just be open-minded and show up.
Open-minded. I like that. I feel like the more open-minded you are, you're gonna grab different experiences, and I think one thing that I got from you too is being observant.
Yeah.
I think you had mentioned one time that you try to be very observant and like absorb lessons that you might see within community or within conversation, and I do think that that's really important too. And I think that only really happens if you have that open mind, if you're willing to listen to another person speak. And I think that, and especially I think back to your time, and I also think that a lot of times back then it was like almost people were closed-minded.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I'm not gonna listen to another person's values. And I even remember me growing up, like there would be people within my circle that I might look at and be like, oh, I'm not even gonna talk to that person or listen to that person because like, what do they know? Meanwhile, something that they're saying or something that they know could be something that either helps me learn something more, or maybe that person's a great person too, deep down inside. And I think that you only really get that when you're open-minded, just like what you just said.
And leave the ego at the door.
Ego.
I mean, it's part of me being observant. I think I learned, from my talk show days, because there was always something, going on. I mean, as I'm talking to a guest, if you were the guest, I'm talking to you, I'm watching for audience members that want to raise their hand and say something, so then you have to go over to them, and then you're watching for cues, when to go to break, when to bring out the next person. So there was always a lot going on. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to multitask and, be observant of all around you without making it obvious.
Yeah. Like
some things I had to learn.
How do you shut? Because you just mentioned you were on a show and you have people that are around you watching. I'm sure that there is something deep down that is like, there's a sense of fear maybe of like what another person might think of you. Or even when somebody works with like a trainer at the gym, I think there's a fear in some people of like what others within the gym are going to think of that person for working with somebody. What kind of helps you overcome that, surpass that? Like, what is like something that you might say to yourself, or like what is the attitude that you approach that with, as far as not caring what another person thinks of you?
Well, I think I did have that at one time, obviously, especially doing a show, you're relying on ratings, so you kind of have to care what people think and take that into consideration. Now in my 40s, it's like that's totally out the window. It's like I live my life, I know who I am as a person, and I didn't really know who I was in my 20s and and even early 30s. I think, we really start to figure out who we are, and this is just me. Mid 30s on is really when you start to define yourself, like what works for you now, what doesn't work for you. There are people that I was friends with 20 years ago that I'm no longer friends with because it just doesn't fit what I'm doing now, or the direction that I'm going in, and that happens, as you get older too. It's like certain people no longer fit into your life for whatever reason, and that's okay. So I kind of that bone kind of broke out of my body. Like, I don't really worry about what others think of me anymore. I know who I am as a person. I know that in my real estate business, I know the kind of service I give to my clients. And it's, you can't please everybody, so you kind of have to think of that too, that you're always going to have one or two people that are going to have something to say, but you can turn it back on them. It's like, what's going on with them that they feel the need to criticize.
It's actually great. That was a conversation I had with Zach yesterday. Is we were talking about how like having haters or like people that are talking down, and I do think that deep down inside it is like what you said, it's what's going on in their mind.
Right. Constructive criticism is one thing. If you have something constructive to say, I'm open-minded to hear it.
But hate's different.
Yes, absolutely. There's no room for that.
There is no room for that. Absolutely not. Jason, if somebody was to find you for real estate purposes, where would they find you?
I am on Instagram. I'm not very good at it, but I am there. It's the @ sign, is that what you call it? My handle is Home with Jason G.
Home with Jason G. And now I know that you had said you were doing some home decorating. Is that still something that you do?
I do. I'm like a per diem kind of thing. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm an actual decorator, but I just do what I like, and people love my home, and I do have pictures of my home all over that Instagram. I do a lot of holiday entertaining, so I'm always doing something with table settings and fancy napkin folds. So
No, and you do, and even on your social, like I've seen a couple of posts that you've made, and it looks very organized, professional, and you can tell you're very passionate about like tidying up, keeping things clean and organized.
As my husband would say, is like he feels like he lives in a museum, but there's a place for everything, and everything has its place.
That's so funny. So Jason, thank you so much for sitting down and conversating with me. I definitely plan on doing this again soon, and kind of diving and obviously showcasing throughout your self-improvement journey, and then obviously kind of piecing it all together from this conversation, leaving the door open to dive into maybe some other topics that we're both interested in. But thank you, and I'll leave your link to your social in the description, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thanks, Jake.
All right. Awesome. Thanks.
If something from today's conversation resonated with you and you are serious about improving your performance physically and mentally, reach out to me directly. Whether you're an athlete, a parent, or someone looking to take ownership of your health, I'd love to connect. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.